Hello and welcome back to my channel, Boozy Bookish Thoughts. I'm Justine, or Jay if you prefer, and welcome to my new video. So today we are doing Tag Tuesday. Woo! I need to learn how to edit better so I can put effects. But anyway, until then. So today we are doing Tag Tuesday and we are doing the two books tag. And this book tag I understand is you're meant to do when you are 2 months into your YouTube channel. So I technically celebrated my first my 2 months on YouTube on September the 1st because I started posting on July 1st. However, at that point I was not posting because I was unwell and I had not been posting for several weeks. So I missed the mark, and I also didn't know if maybe you wanted to count it as having posted 2 months worth of videos. So I don't know where you want to count it. But anyway, so we are now a little July to August to September to October to November. 4 months. 4 months in, and I'm doing a two book tag. I originally watched this on Maxine's Little Nook. I will tag her down below. And the original tag is by Kelly Reads a Lot. She does a really cute video. Her original video of this is really cute. And I hope you go check her out. But anyway, so there are 5 prompts. I'm sorry, that's like a mistake from my fountain pen. But so there are 5 prompts, and for each prompt, you're supposed to give 2 books. So let's jump right in. We are drinking today. Sorry, we are drinking Cotmas Rosé Aurore. Do not come for me for the French. I keep thinking French wines, but I don't know how to pronounce them. It is a rosé blend, and I will be talking about this on Friday for our wine and book night. But so for now, let's cheers. Well, no, cheers is for the end. But anyway, let's cheers. It's a really good wine. I'm really liking this. I'm so happy I have another bottle. Anyway, so the first prompt is 2 books you've recently read. Now I'm going to cheat on this a little bit right from the get-go. I'm so sorry, Kelly, but right from the get-go, I'm going to cheat a little bit and say, because I just did a October wrap up, so all of my recent reads are there, and I don't want to get redundant. So instead, I'm going to talk a little bit about the 2 books I'm currently reading. They are Magpie Murders, which I have already talked about a lot in my most recent reads. Suffice it to say, I'm really enjoying it, despite the potentially triggering topics, which I think are handled very gracefully. And I've just told myself if anything gets too much, I'm dropping it like a hot potato. But I am like 3.5 hours away from finishing it, and so far it's not triggering, so that's good. The other book, and I've only started this literally tonight, the night I'm filming, and that is Joanne Fluke's Chocolate Chip Cookie Murders. And I talked a little bit about only wanting to read like fun, cozy mysteries. And I can already tell from the first 2 chapters that I've read that this is exactly what I'm looking for. You got an overbearing mother, an overconscientious cop who gives tickets for the dumbest things, a main character who wears leather jackets but is a baker. I love it. I love it so much. And she bakes and gives cookies away like nobody's business. I don't know how she's making any profit because she keeps give cookies away. And it's amazing. And best of all, there's like a chocolate chip cookie recipe in the book. So now I want to try this chocolate chip cookie recipe. Um, Except it has cornflakes. Can you imagine that? Cornflakes and chocolate chip cookies? But anyway, um, it's amazing. And I will probably be picking it back up as soon as I'm done filming. So stay tuned for my November wrap up to see how it goes. And then moving on to the second prompt. So these are 2 books that I'm nostalgic for. Now, I wasn't entirely sure what Kelly meant by nostalgic, but I decided to go with 2 books that I remember very fondly from my childhood, and they are, hang on, these 2 books. I know, right? I have physical books. But the first book is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. And if you will notice, this book is a little worse for wear. Um, I'm surprised it's not dog-eared, but I guess I read it so often I memorize where everything is, and like, look, it just falls open in the pages that I've read so much. Um, and this is nostalgic to me because I read this quite frequently, and I read it when I was a young girl. I read it as a teenager. I read it as a young adult, and I read it as an older adult, older millennial. And every time I read it, I have taken something else away. I have related to different characters. I have learned something new about myself, and I've learned something new about how my outlook on the world has changed. And it's an amazing book. And I know it's incredibly dated, but at the same time, I think it's still incredibly relevant compared to some other classics. And the themes, this is really old. I just saw the price. Um, but the themes about family and sisterhood and the way it portrays romantic relationships is very meaningful and still very relevant. And I think the problems that the sisters encounter are problems that are still relevant to young women to this day. And I will say that the romance in this book is far superior to Pride and Prejudice. I talked about Pride and Prejudice a little while ago, and I said I wouldn't mention it again on my channel, but here we are. I am team Professor Bayer. Professor Bayer over what's his name, Darcy. Professor Bayer is an adorable, sweet man, and he deserves more love. That being said, I purposefully did not watch the 2019 version of Little Women, the movie, precisely because of how they cast Professor Bayer. He's like this young, hot French thing, and I'm like, Professor Bayer is supposed to be old, fat, and German, and not that German is bad, but like, you know, he's supposed to be old and fat and ugly and not at all this young, dashing, handsome guy. The whole point is that he is a steadying presence in Joe's life, and and she, and that's what she needed. It's kind of like, you can't replace young hot Laurie with another young hot dude. That just ruins the story. I know how disappointed everyone is that Joe didn't end up with Laurie. I was there too. But then I started dating a Laurie, and I realized what Joe realized, and now we're not together, and I don't know how he feels about me, but I'm quite happy and I love him very much, but I'm also very happy we're no longer together. Um, that being said, I have not yet. I think I found my bear, but I'm not sure yet. Stay tuned. But anyway, Little Women, very nostalgic. The other book is a children's book. Literally, look at it. It is. Look at how big the print is. Look at how big that print is, and it is only. Uh, how long is this? It is literally 105 pages long. That is how short it is. Look at that, 105. It is 105 pages long, but oh my gosh, this book. And by the way, it's Frindle by Andrew Clements. Andrew Clements Frindle. This book should be taught at university, at linguistics classes, in philosophy classes, in sociology classes. And why? It is about a young grade schooler who decides he's making up a new word. How does one make up a new word? Well, this book will tell you. And this book talks about how this young boy gets this new word out into the public until it becomes part of the zeitgeist. It is, quite frankly, amazing. And all that in 105 pages. Obviously, obviously you skip over a lot of things and things, but it's amazing. Also, I looking back on this, 100% this the main character in the here was at least ADHD, if not ADHD. Um, I refuse to believe that he was not some kind of neurodivergent. But this book is very meaningful to me. I have loved it for forever. I have not reread it in a long time, I will admit that, but it is a very good book. It is very it gives kids lots of ideas, and it makes kids think a little differently about society, about the world. At least it did me. This one little weird neurodivergent kid. Um, and I'd like to think I wasn't the only neurodivergent kid who found identity with this book. That's my little rant about Frindle. I never remembered the name Andrew Clements. I should remember that. This is actually not the copy I had when I was a kid. I don't know where that copy is, but I found this other copy at a book sale when I was not quite an adult. I think I was in college, like, or newly graduated from college, and I bought it specifically because I wanted to have a copy to keep with me. And I took this with me to the Netherlands and everything, and I love this book. Anyway, moving on. Moving swiftly forward. The next prompt is two books that I read in school that I would like to read again. Now, our school was a little different, or at least our English teacher was a little different. Once we reached a certain year in high school, we were no longer required to read certain books. I think this started when we were in second year high school. We were no longer required to read particular books. We were only required to read books, let's say, from Asian authors or from I think in second year high school it was books by Asian authors. In third year high school it was books by oh no, in second year high school it was books by Filipino authors. In third year it was books by Asian authors, and then in fourth year it was books by world authors. Now, I think these were two books that I did for both my fourth year. And one of them is The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. I know, an old white dude. What was I thinking? But anyway, I heard about this book, or I heard about Wilkie Collins from somewhere. I don't know where, but he is considered the inventor of the modern detective novel, and The Woman in White is one of his most famous works. And it is a murder mystery, but it's also told from like the perspective of several different characters, including an inanimate object. So there's that. And I remember really liking it. I do remember really liking it, but I don't remember the details anymore. So I do want to read it to get a better understanding of it. And I generally love detective stories. So I do want to read it and get a better appreciation of it as an adult. The other book is especially meaningful because it is a to make a for the old dead white guy. I have Things Fall Apart by Chinwe Achebe. I believe this was actually assigned to my sister who was in college. So my sister is much older than me, and she went into college while I was still in elementary. And so this book was lying around our house by the time I reached high school. And I decided to pick it up and read it for my world authors assignment. So I am a little unclear again about what it is about. From what I remember, it is about a man, an African man who lives in Africa and who is at the time that the colonizers are coming into his country or into his universe, his country, his life. So colonizers are coming in, they are shaking up the way his world is. And on the back it says a simple story of a strong man whose life is dominated by fear and anger. um it's about, so again, as far as I know, it's about an African man in Africa during the time that the colonizers are just coming in, and he's like dealing with that, which is obviously a lot to deal with. Now, when I read this in high school, obviously, as the child of a nation who was long colonized, I was familiar with the concept of colonization and with its horrors. However, I did not have the deep theoretical grounding in the concept that I do now after having gone through university and post grad. So I do want to read this again and see what I get from it now as a more informed adult. And I do want to see. I also understand, however, that there are themes of unaliving in this. So I don't think I'll be reading it anytime soon. I will have to say that. But considering that at the time that I read this, my I'll be denoising this video anyway, but there's cats. Anyway. Considering that at this point when I was reading this, my thoughts on unaliving were still very much they were still very much running wild in my head, but at the same time, I thought it was just I thought I thought every teenager was dealing with thoughts of unaliving themselves. I didn't realize that this was not standard operating procedure. So I wasn't bothered with them. If I don't know, I need to talk about this with my therapist, but literally that's what I thought. So I wasn't triggered by the question of unaliving in this book because of that. But now that I'm older and I have explored deeper into my own mental health and trauma and all that, I do want to read this further and try and understand it better. So it is a big this book is kind of a big deal. So it's called a masterpiece and is often compared to great Greek tragedies and so on and so forth. Um it's a big deal book, and I want to give it the justice it deserves because I feel like I didn't do it justice way back 15 years ago. Christ. I'm outing myself. Okay. Next are two books that I wanted to read. Um, I decided to keep it simple. There are lots of books I wanted to read, lots and lots of books I wanted to read, but I decided to at least list down two books that I'm really hoping I get to by the end of the year, but I am unsure about getting to depending on my mental health. And those are Sebastian de Castell's Night's Shadow, and that is the second book in the Greatcoat series. And the second is Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman's Dragons of Spring Dawn, which is the third in the Dragonlance Chronicles. So both of these books are parts of series that I've started and fallen in love with, and I really want to read them some more, but I'm unsure if my mental health can handle them right now. But I am putting them on this list to officially mark that I want to read them. So there we go. The last books are two hype books I wanted to read. This also I was a little unclear on what Kelly meant by this prompt, but I decided to list two books that are super hyped. I'm seeing lots of press about, lots of noise on BookTube and on other places about that. Again, I really want to read, but again, I'm unsure if I'll get to this year. The first one is, wow, I have a physical copy, is Upgrade by Blake Crouch. I picked this up on my book fair trip a couple of weeks ago, and I featured it in my haul, and I'm super excited to read this. I've heard so many good things about this, but honestly, I don't know if I can deal with it right now. I will be talking a little bit about reading and mental health in my video next week Friday, so stay tuned for that. I will talk about why I'm avoiding a lot of books right now. But so I really want to read this. It looks really interesting, and I'm almost sure I will love it. But I don't know if I'll get to it this year. The other book is something I've also wanted to read for so long. Although I admit I've heard some like mixed reviews on it, but I still really want to read it, and that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I'll put up as usual here. I really want to read this. As soon as I read the synopsis of this, I knew I had to read this, but it was so expensive for the longest time. And then it finally went on sale on Amazon. And so I snatched it up on that day, and now I have it. It's in my Kindle library, but I'm not sure when I will pick it up. But that's it. Those are the 5 prompts of the 2 book tag. I don't know if I'm supposed to tag people on this because none of the booktubers I interact with are in their 2 months process. So if anyone sees this, please feel free to tag. Just credit Kelly Reads a Lot. And that's me. And anyway, cheers.